I'm Tracy.
And I'm Val.
And we have special guest tonight, Robert. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
We're always excited to have you on.
And you always are the best dressed. I'm sorry, guys. I know you're in your awesome shirt gang that you've got, or group, or whatever you've got going on.
It's a gang. Yeah.
But
it's always the best dress, flat out, no matter what.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, but let's talk about what we've got going on here in our little Foursquare. Tracy, you've got on a Wonka shirt, right?
Shirt. Yep.
Those of you that cannot see this,
I don't have a good Marvel Captain America shirt, so.
Jake, you're in your Marvel shirt. You've got all the shields. You've got
it's all the Captain America shields.
Yeah.
Nice.
And look, I've even on the hat.
Check that action out.
Oh, the hat. Your hat game lately is quite amazing, Jake. And you've got.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah. And then Robert, our guest host, is in his Captain America like full ensemble. Can you stand up, or is
I'm not wearing? Yeah, it's just waist up for today.
Oh, okay. He's not wearing pants, so he's not going to stand up.
No. I'm wearing pants, just not the pants, my cosplay pants.
Those of you,
I did bring this though, so I do have.
Oh, you've got your shield. You've got your shield. Those of you, we've got about 10 people here on my TikTok. Those of you that just joined us, we are doing our podcast for Movies That Make Us. We are talking about Captain America, the new movie, and you can see us on moviesthatmakeus.com and anywhere you stream podcasts. If you haven't seen the movie, spoiler alert. So we are going to do spoilers, right? We're going to jump in?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to do whatever you guys say. I'm just following your lead.
Let's be honest, though. Marvel spoiled the whole movie themselves, so...
There was like 5 minutes they didn't spoil.
Yeah. I do have my Marvel arm. That's why I'm wearing a tank top, because I've got my Marvel arm here. I don't have any cap yet, but don't get mad. That's all I can do. I do have my Captain America Civil War poster in the background, so I'm trying to bring my game.
I got to bring my geek game up because you guys have all these decorations in the background, and I've just got a blank wall.
It's all good. We're not going to wall shame you.
I'll cross that off the agenda. All right. Well, so much for that.
Robert's like, well, that was most of my talking points. But...
There go my talking points.
Oh, well, no wall shaming. Then we are all done. It's funny because Robert, I think it was you that commented on one of my posts, like New World Order or something like that. Captain America, was it you? Who did that? And now I can't get it out of my mind. And so I'm like, Captain America, Brave New World, but in my mind, it's New World Order, which I feel like in the political climate right now, that kind of suits it. We're not getting political today, except for in the Captain America world, which people don't understand. A lot of people have been commenting online about how political this movie is. And I said, well, let's go back in time to when the Captain America comics were created. Mm-hmm. They were created because of the political world that was around them at the time. So it's Captain America. He goes through different wars. Sometimes I don't understand, like, people are kind of in their own bubble. Like, it is political because that's why Captain America was created. So
it was actually a little less political than I thought it would be, to be honest with you.
And Captain America, despite wearing the flag or a flag-based costume, shouldn't be a government agent. Basically,
right?
He should be the ideal of America.
He's not the U.S. agent.
No.
The Falcon Winter Soldier.
Correct. And a lot of people just go, but he's Captain America. He represents America. The idea of America, yes, not the government of America. Yeah. But when you're draped in the flag, people go, oh.
I mean, I get how pedestrians of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Wow. I didn't want to they're here. I'm a surface nerd. when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I'm a little more like
I'm with you there, Val.
I'm like in it, but for most of the part, like as a nerd, I am very much a surface nerd. But
why don't we refer to them as like civilians?
Civilians are fine. Yeah. Sometimes people don't like that to be considered civilians because, but whatever.
I don't know that it's worse.
Pedestrians on your left, like we're all out here in the world, like doing our thing, and none of us are actually in here. But I do want to talk about Anthony Mackie. I do want to get a little controversial really quick. So Anthony Mackie, he made a comment when he was doing the press junkets that Captain America doesn't necessarily encompass America, and people got very mad at him. But I think going along with what you said, Robert, Captain America is something that the world has become to love, and he represents something beyond just America. And we see that when we get into the What If animated series, and when we get into the Doctor Strange movie that wasn't really the Doctor Strange movie, and that's a whole different series or episode that we've talked about. But we get a different captain, right? What do they call? She's British, UK. What do they call?
Captain Carter.
It's
Captain Carter.
She just says Captain Carter.
Yeah. And so what did you guys think about that? For me, I think it's a universal thing. Just because it says Captain America doesn't mean that what Captain America represents is only an American hero, an American thing. Like, what is your take on this statement?
Well, he's not a real American hero because that's G.I. Joe.
Right. It's a good point.
Real American hero is G.I. Joe.
But
see?
But Captain Carter actually started in the comics, not in What If, as a character, an alternate reality, Peggy Carter, who, much like they showed in What If, got the super soldier serum. And Marvel has then kind of expanded on that in both comics and in the What If series, where she has adventures as the Captain America analog, but just British.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that she's and looking at what they've done with her in both comics and in animation, she represents, that part of Britain, the fighting spirit of Britain, let's say, that Cap represents for America. Unfortunately, there's only one generation of Captain Carter, so there's no legacy to pass on. There's no 1, 2, 3, 4 other people that have carried the shield.
Yeah.
But, so there's room to grow there, so to speak. But I think that Captain Carter represents for a new generation, for Britain, what Captain America did for the U.S. in the 40s through, I would say, the 80s, when he stopped being Captain America for a while.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's interesting too. Go ahead, Jake.
Oh, go ahead, Tracy. You're good.
I was just going to say, I think up until the Chris Evans Captain America, and even it took, I think, a little bit longer than that until we started getting into when we started getting into Winter Soldier and stuff and Civil War, there was kind of a feeling, I think, with Captain America, like there is with Superman, where he's just a goody two-shoes, he's boring. But I think that Chris Evans brought some different layers to that, and Marvel handled it really well. And it's interesting to see those same people who are like, the rah-rah America guy is boring, and now the rah-rah American guy is he should be that, instead of being a little bit more shades of gray.
I just want to see the rah-rah American guy enter the MCU. Like, I would love what rah-rah American guy. That's a new superhero.
No, but we've seen him though. It's John Walker.
It is John Walker.
If you look at the way they introduced him in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, he is totally the rah-rah American guy.
But did they say this is rah-rah American boy? Like, is that his name?
I don't think that's a direct.
I want the name. I want.
All right.
It's
either be a sidekick.
It's either.
I think a lot of people saw Cap as kind of a one-dimensional character that was just the pure-blooded always do good, goody two shoes, mom, apple pie, rule America, kind of like Superman. And they were like, oh, well, that's really boring. And then came to love Captain America. And I really enjoy what Mackey's doing with the character. And I love the fact that he's not replacing Chris Evans' Captain America. He is continuing that legacy. And the new Falcon says to him, Cap was somebody that everybody could look up to. You're somebody that everybody goes, he's not a super soldier. He's not got all superpowers. I could be like him. So
they aspire
to. Yeah.
Yeah. That's, he says, Steve gave everybody something to believe in.
Yeah.
You give everybody something to aspire to. And I think it's true. I think the difference between Sam Wilson as Cap and Steve Rogers as Cap, Sam Wilson doesn't have the super serum. He doesn't have super strength, super speed, any of that kind of stuff. He is just a soldier who happens to be a really good guy. He knows how to talk to people. I love that throughout this movie, his way of dealing with confrontation is from a very therapist kind of approach, because that's what his background is. And I think that it's really cool that he's very different than what Steve Rogers was. And it's a very good different.
Yeah, I agree. And I was super excited when we got into the movie because I'm a huge fan of Sam Wilson's Captain America. It takes nothing away from Steve Rogers' Captain America, but just what you said, Jake, is that he's got the heart and the drive, and it proves that like anybody can step up and do their part, right? And
well, he was with Cap from the very beginning too. That helps. It wasn't like he just got shoehorned in,
right,
and inherited the role. He's been there since the start of this.
Yeah. And then when you get into the film, I literally like just jumped in my seat like a little jump when I saw Isaiah Bradley, because I wasn't sure what they were going to do. Because if you've seen Falcon Winter Soldier series on Apple TV Plus, you get into that backstory. Sorry,
the other plus.
I've been watching that all day long. Disney Plus. Sorry, do not cut me off, Disney. On Disney Plus, I love how I just love that series. There's a part of the series, I think we did an episode on the series way back when, or we talked about it in one of our episodes.
Season 1, I think.
Yeah. Because it was made in 2021. So that's how far this story has been happening. And they jump into these original soldiers, and Isaiah, he was the original. He was the original super soldier that was.
He was not.
Okay, I'm liar.
No. You're not wrong. They used the first one after Rogers because they were trying to duplicate it, and basically, what the scientists did was they didn't have all the formula. They didn't have the vital ray injection to give him, but he was a test subject basically to make sure that the serum worked.
Yeah,
no, he was. I'm sorry. Steve was the first.
Yes.
But when Steve was lost and after Peggy poured out the rest of the super soldier serum, they were like, we need to test this on people. And so in the parallel to the Tuskegee experiments, they tested on a troop of black people, and Isaiah is the only one that was viable.
Yes. But then, like, as you see in this movie, in the new movie, there was more that came after him, as far as in the cinematic universe. I'm not, when it comes to the comic books, that's when you guys fill in, that's where I am, I am right here. I've seen all the movies. I've seen all the shows. I've read like a splinter of the comics, which I am correcting. I actually went and bought some comics the other day, first time in a really long time. But I was really excited that they brought him in, and his storyline in the movie to me is very intriguing. What did you guys think of how they incorporated him in the film and utilizing this kind of manipulation with him?
I'm going to let you guys go first.
Oh, well, I asked the question, so
I know I'm going to let Tracy and Jake go
Jake, I went
first.
first last time. Do you want to take it?
Sure. I think they do a really good job representing a story that a lot of people in the United States can really identify with. And if you don't identify with it, that's okay. Just understand there are other people who've had other experiences than what you've had. And I think, it's heartbreaking. Isaiah's story is heartbreaking when they talk about what he did in Korea and his missions there, um, when the new Falcon is talking to him about that, and he served his country, and what did he get for it? He got a 30-year prison sentence. And then even now he is out, and Sam has brought him out of the shadows, and he's finally getting a little bit of that recognition. And then he gets involved in the assassination attempt, and it's right back into prison. There's no conversation. There's no doubt. He is a bad guy in their minds. I think that is a very true lived experience for a lot of individuals.
Yeah, and the scene where he's like, I can't go back. I can't go back. And it was just like heartbreaking because he's like, what he had been through. I thought the film did a good job in explaining that character if you had not seen Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I like quite a bit, but I do feel like they could have done more with that character. And then I had a little bit of a problem with the brain control. It's like we've seen that, we've done that, we've had the Winter Soldier, so I don't know. It just kind of felt a little easy to me. I felt like you could have done something different and still gotten. I don't know what it would have been, but I thought they handled his character well. I just didn't like what they necessarily did with him. And again, I get the point of why the government did him dirty, but it's still awful to see.
See, and I liked the mind control part. For me, they're taking something that has already been done that they're holding on to, and they keep exploiting it. And for me, that is super true, right? So if we're going to get into just human nature, right? We keep repeating these things. And when they're that easy, because for them, they set it up. They set up for him to be there. They set this whole storyline up, and then they exploit it knowing that, and tell me if I'm wrong here or I'm overstepping, that if a black man steps up and shoots a gun, we're not going to question why, what, when, how. He was the first person to stand up and shoot. And then everyone else was standing up and shooting. And for me, I question it with some of the things that are going on in the real world today, is that what if somebody would have stepped up first? What if somebody else would have stepped up first? But you're using someone's tragedy, right? He has PTSD. He was a military person that was thrown away, which is also happening in the world right now. You serve our country and then you're put out like trash. And so he gets there. He's wearing the suit that he's had forever. He's sitting in the front row. He did not want to go because he knew it probably wasn't a good idea, right? And he gets there and they utilize a weakness that was set into him way back in the day, and he's right back, like you said, Tracy, to the first point. Like nothing had happened in between. It was just this cycle that can happen and that it can be getting away with, and nobody's going to question it. All right, Robert.
Oh, okay, buckle up.
Here we go.
So let's look at this. Let's take a historical standpoint first, and then move into the comic realm. Black soldiers in the American military up until I believe it was the 60s, served in all black units. There was total segregation of the army. In cases of like, if anyone was wounded, they didn't want to contaminate blood or anything. It's like they're lesser soldiers. They're expendable. Basically, they were slightly better status than they were 60 years before. So, and not by much. So you now have somebody who is looked at as only an asset, an expendable asset at that. So when they did the experiments on him, and the other super soldiers in his group went right round the bend or just died because of the exposure to the treatment, and Isaiah was the only one who was a viable candidate. They used that to build the super soldier serums that they extrapolated after that. They sent, before some of the other men in his group died, they sent them on a mission, got captured. Isaiah was able to escape, and then got himself a Captain America outfit and one of the original shields, and then went to go rescue his compatriots in Korea. An action that Steve, doing the same thing in World War II, got a promotion and commendations for. But Isaiah gets put in jail for 30 years, and it's hard. He's doing hard time in a federal prison. When you find him in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, he's a broken man, period. He's doing his best to raise his grandson, but he's not whole, and nobody has made him whole until the end of that series, where Sam brings him into the light a little bit more. One of the things that I really appreciated was when Sam took Joaquin to go train, and he's like, I know a guy, and they walk in, and Joaquin's like, you didn't tell me he was the OG. You didn't tell me he was that guy.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I really appreciate about the MCU that hasn't happened quite the same in the comics, is that people know who Isaiah Bradley is as of episode 6 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because Sam has put him in that spotlight. He has brought him back. He has put his name out there as living history. Excuse me. So by the time we get to Brave New World, which is, I think they said 3 years later, we see that not only have people embraced Sam as Captain America, like everybody walks around calling him Cap, which, and nobody blinks, nobody flinches at it. And I think that's amazing. And he walks into the White House with a very reluctant Isaiah, and Isaiah is starting to just loosen up just enough and enjoy himself. And that's what, for me, is the more heartbreaking part. Not just what happens after that, but the fact that he was so vehemently against going, and Sam goads him into going. He finally lets his guard down, and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
And the chase scene, and the only thing that kept him from getting shot then was Sam being on the scene and just being like, no, hold on, give him a minute, and try to intercede in his position. And watching him realize what was about to happen as they're putting him on the ground and getting ready to cuff him, watching his eyes. And let me just say, Carl Lumbly has been a favorite of mine as an actor for decades. I mean, you put him in something, I will watch it. And watching him bring Isaiah to life, and his struggle, his mental struggle, his I can't go back in. If I go back in, I will die there. And watching Sam torn between, doing the right thing and doing what's the best thing to do. And just trying to tell him, I will get you out, trying to console him. And you could just see that by the time Sam goes to talk to him in jail, he is not the man he was.
Right.
And then
he's the man that we saw in episode 3 or 4 of Falcon and Winter Soldier. That he's that broken man again, despite the fact that he could kick his way out of that prison and take off.
That's the thing, though, is he doesn't, and he could. Like, we see him rip that bag, from the ceiling. He is strong enough,
the original Cap. Yeah,
but he has integrity. But he also has been pushed down so much that he doesn't recognize how amazing he is, because it's just been pushing down and pushing down and pushing down. In that, episode 2 and 3 that we see, the lighting in his house is dark, and it makes you feel like the world is coming in around him, and he's been buried. He's been buried for all of this time. What they do in Falcon Winter Soldier with the lighting, and he's just, like you said, amazing, Robert. But when he's sitting in that cell in Captain America, and he says, what can I do, or something like that, and he's like, don't come back. And it's like, that to me, was because he can't have that hope.
Exactly.
That will kill him. You know,
Yeah.
like hope. My daughter actually asked me this the other day. She texted me and she asked on Facebook. She said, "What is hope to you?" And I said, hope can be the most dangerous thing in the world. It can also be the most uplifting thing in the world. Simultaneously, you know, hope can be, you know, this good and evil. And, you know, with him, when he says, don't come back, it's he can't keep having that hope because
Right.
that makes it so much worse. And that
Right.
stung with me, you know, that hit hard.
Yeah. One thing I noticed too, Val, and speaking of the lighting, I really like the fact that they really desaturated Cap's uniform, and really there's like, you don't really see any red in the film until the Red Hulk shows up. And it's a subtle thing, but I like I was noticing that there wasn't like the official studio press release shots of the suit are very different than what it looks like in the film, where it's much more kind of grayed out and desaturated.
But they also had the two costumes, though. They had the one that started off like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier suit.
Yeah.
So he did have it. And then after that, he gets damaged early.
But even then, it's like desaturated. So it's not popping off of the screen.
Right. But the other one just being like the Blue Strike suit. It was much more muted and subdued.
So I want to throw this out there. Old King Cosplay on TikTok, which I think you know who that is, said hot garbage. I don't know if he means the movie is hot garbage, the costume is hot garbage, or our take is hot garbage.
I hope that he articulates his response, because I would like to counter if need be.
Ty, we know who you are. He said, "No, it's me," and I'm finally talking about movies on TikTok with our podcast, Movies That Make Us, and Robert is here. I don't think any of this is hot garbage. Now, the story is not. Yeah, there are some issues with the film. However, it's setting things up. It's connecting timelines that have been forgotten, which I love. And I know I don't think everything needs to be connected. I'm fine with standalone things, but it's connecting stories that I actually, I have an affinity for these different stories. So I'm okay with it, but there are problems. And I'm sure we will get to those problems, but not hot garbage. Oh, he says the movie.
Oh,
the movie is hot garbage.
So perhaps I'll take this bullet. I'll take this bullet. Okay. Perhaps the movie, much like Kendrick Lamar's halftime show, was not for all people, and I will leave it at that.
Ooh, and I agree. Like we've said this time and time again. And Jake, I'll let you go next. Is like not everything is for everyone, and that's okay.
And Ty, I do still love you. It just may not have been for you.
Okay, so I will admit, as far as the Kendrick Lamar thing goes, I'm one of those who I don't know his music. I am an old white guy, and I didn't understand what a wrinkled bald guy is. What? I didn't understand the lyrics. I had a hard time keeping up. I don't listen to that type of music, but I could kind of appreciate what was going on. And then reading about it afterwards, I'm like, okay, this makes more sense. But again, and I think the movie, as far as the movie goes, it wasn't the train wreck I expected it to be, based on the amount of reshoots that they had, the amount of rewrites that they had, the amount of trouble behind the scenes that they had. I was expecting, and I was expecting a complete and total.
You were expecting Madam Web, weren't you?
And I came out of it going, they pulled that together fairly well. Is it one that I really want to watch again? No. I don't think that it should have been a direct sequel to a movie from 18 years ago that no one really remembers. And I don't think that it necessarily needed to tie into Eternals. I get it. And I'm gonna say this, and I'll probably get some hate for it, but I am getting frustrated with the fact that all of these movies now only exist to further propagate and set up the next Avengers film. Like, there was a time where these movies stood on their own and they meant something while still building towards something. but now these are simply stepping stones for the next event, because they've already said the next like 5 movies. So we know that the leader's not going to be that big of a deal. Red Hulk's
I
not
hope
gonna be
not.
that big of a deal. And then that was one of the worst post-credit scenes
Yeah.
of all of Marvel.
I get what
But when you know that you've got Galactus coming, you know you've got Doctor Doom coming, it lessens this film.
but this one kind of building to that next thing, the next Avengers movie, for example, like I get what you're saying, Tracy, that it does feel like a lot of the movies are just building up to that next event now. But this one needed to, because we're in a lull with the Avengers, right? Steve's gone. Tony's gone. I don't know where Thor is, but
He's off raising his adopted daughter.
that's right. He's off
Washing
off
his
with-
hair.
And washing his hair
Yes.
with Head and Shoulders.
and all of that. So the Avengers are gone. And so to
Right.
me, it makes sense that they're saying, they come right out and say it. We want you to form the Avengers.
Well,
and I think it's good in that regard.
I'll put a lot of the blame on Marvel itself, because they are announcing these films. They are announcing major characters. They're announcing major plot points. Before Captain America Brave New World comes out, they released the Thunderbolts trailer where Val comes out and says the Avengers aren't showing up. So you know that the Avengers aren't going to start getting back together in this film. And so to me, their marketing has really taken away and detracted from these movies. Maybe that's what I'm more upset with than the movie itself.
Okay, so let me take those 2 points really quick from both of you about the, let's call it bridge movie syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need to necessarily be a direct sequel to a movie from 18 years ago. It needs to be, and it is for me, a direct sequel for Falcon and the Winter Soldier and the last 3 minutes of Endgame. Because what we get in this movie, 3 years in, he's been Captain America. People recognize him as Captain America, accept him as Captain America for the most part, and they're happy to see him when he shows up. Sam still has doubts. Sam is still the guy who's like, I don't deserve this, which we saw episode 1 of Falcon and Winter Soldier. He's been in the job for 3 years, and he still feels that he's got imposter syndrome. And I think that it took the, special guest cameo appearance to go, shut up, do your job. You got the job for a reason. And I know that there's a lot of times when anybody gets into a job and they feel like, who's going to find me out? Who's going to realize I don't have what it takes? Where Sam is questioning, is that what it takes? The super soldier serum? He's already found workarounds for how he operates as Captain America, but doesn't rely on that. And he's highly effective without the serum. But there's still that doubt in his mind, like, I should have taken the serum. And you're like, no, you're good. You're fine. Let it roll. As far as bridging, moving up to the next event, yes, but I don't think that it's necessarily the next Avengers event, because granted, it was not the strongest post-credit scene ever, but it's not necessarily the event, but the introduction or the reminder that it's a multiverse. I don't think the Fantastic Four is going to be set in the 616. We know that the X-Men are not in the 616.
Right.
So we know we're taking it on faith that the next event is a multiversal storyline. Since they can't use Kang, they're doing Secret Wars. It's going to be basically Battle World, where Doom takes worlds from different multiverses and goes, fight.
And I think that was just a reminder. I agree with you, Robert, on that, because for me, I felt exactly the same as you. I didn't feel like we went back to the Incredible Hulk and now all of a sudden we have this movie. Like, for me, it was just, it connected something that made the regular, again, like regular surface nerds that just love the MCU, that aren't reading the comic books, that aren't watching all the shows. They are here and we are connecting it. And we have to understand that we are in the 5% of people that are like breaking this down, right? And
Right.
so being able to connect and have people understand why Harrison Ford's character is so important and how he connects into this story so that you understand who he is, and then to bring Liv Tyler in so that then visually you understand, like they're connecting an audience for a bigger audience than us. And to me, I appreciate that because, again, Captain America is for everyone. Does it work in all the timelines? It doesn't. But for me, I appreciate it because I want Sam and his timeline to keep moving through the MCU because he deserves it.
Absolutely.
Again, there are some problems, but there are some really great things. I absolutely love, and some people think that this character was thrown away, but you guys know that I'm a huge fan of Esposito, Giancarlo Esposito. Now, like, they just threw, his bad guy away. They didn't. He is not gone. He did not die. He is still there, but they came in and it was just that little, he's a zinger, just like he is in Star Wars. He is the zinger that I love. He just gets in there and he turns it and he does his little Esposito thing. And I absolutely loved all these little bullets that they gave us, and they didn't kill any of these things.
Right. I think my problem is that the main villain behind the scenes is a fairly minor character from the Incredible Hulk, especially because when people think of the Hulk, they think of
Abomination.
Abomination.
The leaders actually.
No, when most people think of the Hulk, they think of who's the actor who plays him now, Ruffalo.
Yeah.
They don't think of the Edward Norton Hulk.
Thank God.
But
you had the guy, the leader, is not a major character in that film. But I mean,
if you're talking films, he's not. No.
Yeah, they introduce him
and
barely.
So now you haven't touched him, and they kind of explain why in the movie, but it's like that is a weird flex for a villain choice. And then you have Serpent Society, who doesn't get a lot of time, and then you have the Harrison Ford. It just felt like it was too much crammed into it. That to me is where I felt like a lot of the rewrites happened.
Sure.
Yeah.
But also consider, like Val said, there's no body, and he made a deal with Sam to get a cushier incarceration. So
I didn't have a problem with that. It was just as a fan, and I'm thinking of even myself as a fairly well-versed Marvel Cinematic nerd guy, I'm still trying to remember, okay, now who is this guy? What happened? And they did a fairly decent job, but it was a lot of exposition in this movie to remind you of all these things that happened and why he's going to be important.
But again, take Sam out of that equation. Take Sam completely out of that equation, which I realize it's his movie, but in this case, work it off of Ross, President Ross.
And I was more okay with that because he's more relevant.
Right, but look at what they did to kind of backpedal him a little bit with Harrison Ford's makeup for one scene, putting him in the mustache to remind you he's the guy that made the Sokovia Accords, that chased down the Hulk, all of these things. And then originally in the comics, he volunteers himself to become the Red Hulk, whereas this one is more manipulated into becoming the Red Hulk because the leader is playing chess with nations, and he's looking at the long game. And his Stearns is a very vain person in the comics, and you look at him now and you realize he can't be, because the way they deformed him for the movie, which I thought was well done for that. Make him horrific. Show that gamma radiation affects different people differently. Bruce got strong and dumb, or I'm sorry, that's not true. Bruce turns into a raging 3-year-old. Jen was glamorous, and Stearns got incredibly smart. I would love to see somebody to pull another character out of the hat. Doc Samson, whose only gamma mutation is green hair.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh, he's stronger. Yeah. But I mean, so they're showing variations of that. But I think that having to tie into a movie that was 18 years ago, and then that Ruffalo referenced in Avengers, by saying I broke Harlem. It's stepping stones, and I don't think it's the last we're going to see of Serpent Society as like a lesser villain group over the next wave. I would not be surprised if Jia Ling, with coming back with the 10 rings, incorporates them into some plan against her brother or somebody else.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Robert. You mentioned that they did a good job with the leader. I thought that makeup job was just the worst.
But I wanted grotesque, not tall, elongated head.
Sure. But
I liked it because it was still awkward.
Awkward.
It was awkward, but I felt like it was awkward in a like, this is somebody's school project and they didn't quite understand the assignment kind of awkward.
I didn't think it looked like...
Which of the two of you are X-Men fans? And I've got 2 words for you. Artie Maddox. They made his look like Artie Maddox, as opposed to green and, a head that's an 18-gallon hat wearing head.
I'm not upset with the direction they went with it. Like, that's
just the
fine.
execution.
The execution was poor.
Okay.
That's where I had a struggle. If they wanted to make him look grotesque, and I get it. Absolutely, because like you said, he is typically a very vain character, and now he's hideous and nobody wants to look at him. 100% on board with that. It's just I didn't feel the execution was that great.
Okay.
How do you guys feel about the way that they introduced adamantium in this? Because they start out a little bit in the beginning where they've got the hooks on the shield, right? And it's strong, and so it's coming. And I, unpopular opinion, maybe not on my Facebook page this week, but I like the Eternals. There are definitely a lot of problems in the Eternals movie. There's a whole storyline that I don't care for, but I actually like the Eternals. I watched it again a couple weeks ago, and I liked it again. And I loved how it was just these little things. It wasn't like this big, thing like adamantium is here. It was little things. We've got the hooks that are kind of breaking through. We've got the slash across Sam's, outfit. We, all these little things. And then we get the fight. We get the fight of who is going to get this. We want to try and have everybody in there, but just like kind of what's going on in the world right now, like, oh yeah, everybody decides that now we're going to race to it. Right. And now we've got the big, we've got the big guy in the water from Eternals that is not referenced anywhere else. And well,
it is twice,
but like in another series, like they just forgot about it. They made the movie and then they moved on from it. Right. So for me, I was excited to get it in there. And then I'm excited for where this is going to go with it. I don't think they're going to necessarily bring back, like, they're not going to probably make another Eternals movie. Maybe they'll bring back 1 or 2 characters. But for me, I enjoyed it. So I like that they bring it back. And of course, we needed adamantium to be brought into the picture. So,
have any of you watched For All Mankind?
Yes.
Okay. I am just starting it. I'm just starting season 2. I just started it last night. But
that is on Apple TV Plus.
That one is. But I compare the introduction of adamantium in this movie to the way that technology is advancing in For All Mankind. Because the space race in that show never ended. So the technological advances roll a lot faster in both the commercial space, and we're starting to see a little more in the military space. And I think that what we're seeing here is a Marvel fantasized version of the Cold War to be the first with adamantium. And I like the fact that they tried to do it as a coalition first. The original draft had Japan figuring it out, how to process it, melt it, the whole 9 yards. But then they, in rewrites, backstepped and was like, let's do it as a coalition, and everybody gets a piece of the pie. And then that coalition breaks down because of the machinations of the leader and everything going on. But I think that watching this again, I think it's, again, connecting dots, as Val was saying. I love the fact that they finally talk about the giant head and giant hand in the ocean that we've only heard referenced in Guardians 3 and She-Hulk. And that's it.
And if you're not paying attention, you miss it.
Yes.
Like
It's not a major plot
they
point on
really
those.
just kind of like, like, hey, I'm talking to you guys. I like broccoli. And guess what else that is, like it's not this big, huge thing. If you blink, you miss it.
And so it's
a
there.
throwaway line almost.
Yeah. And now it's there and it's in your face, and it's where we're getting the next technological advance in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
And it's going to be years before we see an X movie in the MCU, whether it's the universe that Monica found in the Marvels, or or if they decide to go like the ultimate route and the government starts experimenting again on people and then creates mutants like they did in the original run of the Ultimate Universe in the Marvel Comics. So I look forward to that. And I will be the first to admit, not a perfect movie, but it did the thing that I went into the movie for, and that was to be entertained.
Yep.
And I was entertained.
Than I thought it would be. Yeah.
And were there holes? Sure. But I'm not necessarily going to nitpick a movie that is finally feeling like we're out of the drudgery of Phase 4. With all of the weight that Phase 4 had, with all the trauma that Phase 4 had, we're now moving on to what's the next sunrise. And this is, maybe the pre-dawn twilight look. And I'll take that because I'm interested to see what they do next, and if they can keep up a decent standard of movie and TV show and whatever other event they're giving us from this. And I think that Sam's journey is just that. It's a journey. He's not at the end of the journey because he still has more to do as Captain America. I want to see who he brings in as the Avengers. Hopefully it'll be Shang-Chi, and Val will be able to just finally be happy.
Don't get my hopes up.
He knows his audience. He knows his audience.
Having Sam Smith and Shang-Chi, I'd be done. Good.
And then we have the rumors of Young Avengers that have been on the back burner for a couple of years now. And that
they're
I will
not
say,
getting any younger. Let's be.
That is true. But that was one thing that was missing from this movie was Eli Bradley. But there was no room for him, and he was originally in one of the drafts, but they couldn't put him in given what they did with the last series of rewrites. And I'm okay with that. I think that could have been another incredibly heartbreaking scene to have Eli have to go see his grandfather in jail and to see the man that he's known as his, not quite his rock, but the man that he could depend on as an even more broken version of himself. And then I think that scene where Isaiah was like, do me a favor, don't come back, with Eli would have been heartbreaking for both of them.
Yeah.
In a very different way than it was for Sam.
Well, and how they have it in Falcon Winter Soldier is that you can get up out of the neighborhood or whatever that you're set in. And so if he would have seen this go backwards in the movie, that's also just piling stuff on him with the world's going to keep coming down on me.
Keep you down, yeah.
And that would have been so powerful. And
it would have been powerful, but I think that also not the message they wanted to give.
Right. That's why there wasn't enough room for it, but in that alternate universe, it would have been powerful. But for me, also one of the most just in the heart is when you have Thaddeus Ross look right at Sam and say, you're not Steve Rogers.
Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
And I was just like, ooh!
Okay, so I got to ask you guys this question, your opinion on this, because to me, Harrison Ford is doing some of his best acting work of his career right now. And I thought he was fantastic as Ross. I like the fact that he wasn't just this raging, arrogant jerk, that he was trying to change and trying to be a better person. But I feel like the marketing, I think Marvel did Anthony Mackie bad on this movie in terms of the marketing, because it was 100% Red Hulk, which you should never have given away. It was like that Abigail movie with the vampire girl where she's the ballerina vampire. And it's like, if you would have gone into that movie thinking that the little girl who got kidnapped is just a little girl who got kidnapped, and it turned out that she's a vampire in the theater, you'd be like, what? You know,
Hey, Val, Giancarlo Esposito's in that, so you got to see it now.
That's true. Yes.
But no, Tracy, you're right.
But I
It's
feel like
similar.
the marketing was so Red Hulk focused. It's like, this is Captain America's movie.
Yeah. Until the movie came out.
Okay, but Tracy.
But I feel one last thing. I feel like Marvel was afraid that Anthony Mackie couldn't carry this film as Captain America by himself, and they couldn't market it. They couldn't market him as Captain America in this film, and had to bring out the Red Hulk, had to bring out like that whole fight scene was basically spoiled to market the film. That's my opinion. So I want to know your guys.
Okay, this is not as much of a buckle up. Two things. First, you're right about marketing it with Red Hulk. It is the exact same thing that Disney did. Nope, sorry. That Lucasfilm did, because they hadn't bought them yet, with Episode 1, with all of the merchandise for that movie that had Darth Maul front and center.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the big bad, and then we lose him halfway through the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And we're done until Rebels or Clone Wars. But again, I think that Disney was, like you said, I think they were afraid that Mackie couldn't carry it as Captain America. And I think that it wasn't just that they were afraid that he couldn't carry it as Captain America. I think that it was
the audience.
At a more basic level, the audience not accepting him as Captain America. And if you looked at anything on any social media coming into this movie, there was all the pre-movie bombing, ratings bombing, comment bombing about, oh, well, it's not my Captain America. Oh, well, that's great. You know what? Get over it.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy who was chosen by the guy that you liked when that guy couldn't do the job anymore.
Right.
Is he going to appeal to everybody? And quite frankly, the writers for Falcon and Winter Soldier addressed that in a beautiful monologue at the end of episode 6, where Sam's like, every time I put this uniform on, people are watching me, watching everything I do, because I'm not Steve Rogers. Sam, if anybody in the world knows that he's not Steve Rogers, Sam knows it. Yeah. Period. Full stop.
Yeah. Well,
and I think that's part of what drives his insecurity, the level of insecurity that he has, which isn't a lot, but it's the doubt that's in the back of his mind that we see here again of maybe, I'm not the guy.
Well, and they address it in both the movie and the show on why he wouldn't accept himself is because the people around him. And that's one thing I really loved about the series, because they're talking real world prejudice here. And just to get into numbers, so it cost $180 million to make Brave New World. International opening weekend, it made $92.4 million. Northern America made $88.5 million. So that tells you, like, international markets, not by much, but, a little bit more. But then you get into the series. And let me see. So
it was the second or third series that came. It was the second series after WandaVision, wasn't it?
And they did for the whole series, $150 million is what it cost for the entire series. So that wasn't much less than the movie, but it was like this huge story.
And that was right when COVID was breaking out, and you had to do major rewrites on Falcon and Winter Soldier because they were doing the weaponized virus, and they had to change that because of COVID.
Yep.
And I'm just like, man, Mackie's cap is kind of cursed in the regards of the rewrites and the reshoots. Like,
but again, while neither was perfect, I think that we got good and better than decent. We actually got good movies and a good series out of it. And when Falcon and the Winter Soldier came out, My commentary on it was the blackest thing that Marvel has done on TV or in a movie series, not counting Luke Cage for Netflix.
Mhm.
And that was mostly because they showed what it was like to be a black man in America to an audience that probably has either no idea or doesn't care
Or doesn't
or doesn't want to know. Yeah. And I think that, they did it and they put it very much in your face, especially when Sam goes to the bank to get a loan and the guy's like,
Oh,
I can't. And Sam's like, I helped save the world, right? He's like, that's nice. Can I get a picture? I can't give you a loan though.
I can't give you a loan, but I can get what I want right now.
Yeah.
The other thing, and I know we're mixing the movie and the show here, but I think that it's relevant. With the show, the series, not only, like you said, is it the blackest thing that Disney's ever done in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but they also jump into Bucky and both of them together, their mental health issues. So they hit some real, they hit hard. This is, if you haven't seen it, it's heavy, but it's really good. And they're hitting, again, some real world problems. They're hitting race. They're hitting single parents, single moms trying to, navigate the world. They're, thrown away soldiers, 3 of them, right? You've got 3 of them in there. And then mental health that comes, the aftermath of being manipulated by whatever part of the world, government, service, everything. They hit it in this show. The only thing I don't love about the show is when you get into the returns, the people that return and they have no that should have been a whole different series in itself. I didn't care for it in here. I thought it was way too much going on. So I kind of blanked that part out of my head. It's relevant. I just think it was so much that they're trying to do that I feel like it didn't give that storyline justice. I feel like it was, let's throw it in because we have to touch that part of what's going on. We can't ignore it, but they didn't jump in all the way. So, and then that leads us to the, U.S. agent. He takes the serum. He's the guy that is more likely to be Captain America. And when, Sam keeps saying, I should have taken it, but this guy took it. And so let's say you're given the power, right? Are you going to be over here and be like Steve Rogers? Or are you going to take that power and do this? We never know as humans, right? What we are going to do with power that is given to us, right? Yeah. We think we're going to do better, but we don't know till we get there. And so also dealing with that part of it. And then it'll be interesting to see him in Thunderbolts and in that whole situation. But they really do tackle so many different things in Falcon Winter Soldier.
Go ahead, Tracy.
I'm taking us on a divergence, so go ahead, Robert, and then I'll jump in.
And mine's going to be a slight divergence also. But mentioning Thunderbolts, I'm wondering about the timeline. How far after this movie Thunderbolts happens? Because when Val goes to Congress and says the Avengers aren't going to show up, there's no Avengers to show up. So she's taking things under her own belt to go, well, I'll fix that problem. I also think that there is somebody else in the shadows working with her, but I'll keep that for now. And we can talk about that later.
It's not Mephisto.
No.
Come on.
Much more down to earth. Sometimes.
Sorry, I had to.
But I want to see how, I also want to know, because based on how Bucky showed up in this movie, what his role is this is it to raise his Q rating? So,
I wanted to get into, we don't really know what the politics of Earth 616 are, but you've got a guy who destroyed the Avengers, who were very popular, and ripped them apart, and yet somehow he becomes president. And now they have elected to Congress a assassin who's
a war criminal,
an assassin, a recent war criminal,
113-year-old,
113 years old,
doesn't look a day over 112.
Criminal, brainwashed, being used by other people to take down his own government.
I mean,
And-
it's not too far off from.
And I guess
I was going to say, if I've learned anything, we'll elect anybody as a populace.
That was the part
Amen
that
lights.
confused me,
But
you guys, because I'm not
Well-
too much into Thunderbolts. I have no like
I just
skin
wanted to be
in the game.
fun.
I don't know anything about Thunderbolts. I know all the people that are in it, all the characters that are there.
Mhm.
But when they say Bucky is now like running for office, and then I know he's going to be in this, I'm like, I don't understand what's
Well,
going on here.
and
Marvel
what
has
they're
come out and
putting-
said that he is a senator in Thunderbolts. So
Yeah.
in
And-
this one, he's running, but they said
Yeah.
in Thunderbolts he is confirmed to be a senator, and now he's with this group.
Well,
I'm like,
and the Thunderbolts that we're getting on screen are very different than the origin of the Thunderbolts in the comics. And so, Val, we're right there with you. Even if we've read the comics, I don't think we know what's going to happen with this one.
So I don't
So-
need to watch those. I can stay away, steer clear of those comics.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily. I mean, they're-
Well,
If it's not going to help me along in the cinematic universe, I
okay.
don't have time.
Then
for
yes.
it.
Yes.
Then yes, you
Yes.
can stay away from those.
yes.
Yeah. I think I'm very interested in Thunderbolts, much more interested than I was.
mhm.
I think they've done a great job with the trailers that have come out, and David Harbour I think is hilarious, and I think he'll do a
Love
great
him.
job.
Love Florence
Um,
Pugh.
Florence Pugh is great. I do think that this gives us an answer as to why they can't call themselves the Thunderbolts. It's got to
Mhm.
be tied with President Thunderbolt
Yeah.
Ross going,
Yeah.
turning into the
Oh.
Hulk and destroying everything.
Yeah.
I'm
mean-
guessing that's why they.
That's
They
that's
can't
what
do
that's what was in my mind, and I don't know much about it, but it's Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, right? So
That is fantastic.
yeah,
I never
so
considered that.
yeah, that was the only thing that I connected. I was like, Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. Okay, I kind of know one thing in a row.
Well, that
And it all
leads to,
leads
like,
back
the
to
title.
Mephisto.
Well, the title, though, even with the asterisks, the explanation for that is it's like work in progress, which is why they have it Thunderbolts asterisk, because like
Mhm.
in the trailers are like, we can't call ourselves that. So, it's like title could change, which makes me wonder if at some point, to tie
Dark
it back to
Avengers?
the comics, closer to what Jake was saying, they become the Dark Avengers.
Mhm.
Mm.
Because that's where they started and then became the second incarnation of Thunderbolts.
Mhm.
Jake, you're so smart.
Now there is a Marvel comic that is not going to tie into the cinematic universe, but I'm interested in. And total side note, but it's the Aliens versus Avengers, and I'm hearing good things. I haven't read them, but I've heard they're pretty interesting. So
Yeah.
it's like a
And this is-
3 run. It's a short thing, but
This is like the aliens from the Aliens movies,
Uh-huh.
not okay.
yeah,
Because
Not
Marvel's
just random
producing this-
aliens, because I'm like, Avengers fight the aliens all the time.
Marvel has the rights to the Aliens franchise now, so Ripley is a Disney princess.
Well,
Mhm.
and Tracy, I want to throw this out. Did you watch BAFTA last night?
I saw some clips. I didn't watch the show.
So your boy from Aliens won Best Actor.
The guy who played Andy.
the guy who played the cyborg.
I haven't seen the movie, so
Oh, okay. I
um,
thought you had seen that one.
no.
Oh, I'll have to look that up. Romulus was surprisingly good.
Yeah, I mean it's being nominated for a lot of things,
We as the Utah film critics awarded him as the sci-fi actor.
his name David Johnson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, he won.
Yeah, we nominated him for
Rising Star.
What's the sci-fi?
Oh, yeah, the Martin.
The
special award. Yeah,
Jimmy Martin.
mhm.
yeah, and I'm drawing a blank and I feel terrible. Anyway, yeah. So, but yeah, Aliens versus Avengers, which I think is kind of cool. So,
They fought everybody else. Why not?
I
Fast and Avengers, that'd be cool.
The Avengers and the Furious.
Avengers and the Furious.
there we go. Now we got.
I'd
something.
like to see Fantastic Four versus Fast and Furious, because then you've got family
Yeah.
versus family,
Ooh.
and then it's all about family.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So
Well
I
played.
gotta say, as far as this one goes, I liked this one better than like Ant-Man Quantumania, which continues to be one of the worst Marvel films ever.
That's-
And I was
that's
expecting that kind of quality. I
Okay,
thought
I'm-
they did a
That's-
really good job on.
That's like saying I like this ice cream cone better than the butt flavored ice cream cone, Tracy. I mean,
I liked Madam Web more than I liked
Woo.
that non-Ant-Man movie. So
I didn't watch Madam Web, but
it wasn't as crappy as people said. Like it wasn't a superhero movie. It was just like, I think that's why people hated it.
Because it's a Spider-Man movie without Spider-Man. Yeah.
It's so. Yeah. Anyways, that's it.
yeah, but they pulled it off with Venom. They just
Did
didn't
they?
do it
Did they?
I thought the Venom movies were fine.
The first one was good. I just watched the newest one, and I was like, "Ugh."
Hey, the newest one was entertaining, start to finish. I'm not necessarily good, but entertaining.
Definitely entertaining.
I wish, and I understand because they've got to get the fans excited and they've got to get the shareholders of the stock excited, but I just don't like knowing what the next 5 movies are going to be because I can kind of figure stuff out.
But that's you. And again, like talking about this 5% is that regular audiences, they want to know. They want to know what's coming, and they're not out there like, ooh, like, you know, like us little nerds, like trying to connect all these dots and like pulling out the universe and talking on podcasts and like.
But that's a minor thing compared to, I felt like every major spot of this movie was completely spoiled and again, Val, I know you don't watch trailers.
That's why I don't.
Every single trailer, every commercial, even on TikTok, they're releasing like 2-minute clips on TikTok of major scenes the day before the movie comes out. And I'm like, just stop it.
You need to change your TikTok algorithm. Mine's birds and mountains right now.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Tracy. And I think with a normal film series or a normal book series, it's easier to not let everybody know what's coming up ahead. But I think what makes Marvel different, and DC is going to have the same issue as they now create the DCU again, is these comics have been around for a long time, and your fan base that you're trying to build onto, they want to know what's coming up next, and they want to know what major event from the comics is going to be the next major Avengers movie.
To me, though, they had more faith in their movies earlier. And I think, to be honest with you, I think you can tell when Marvel, it's a tell for me, when their marketing starts getting really heavy in new material, to me, that's when they're like, we don't know if we have a hit here.
Well, but we can't.
When you see the same thing in multiple trailers, just like with they'll add like little bits new here and there. To me, they're holding it back, so it's like then you get the surprise in the movie. But when like there's a whole new trailer like almost every week with all new footage, to me it's like we're just going to throw it out there in the hopes that we'll find.
So Tracy, that raises a question for me. Given that we know that there's a movie coming up soon with this guy, and where's the other guy? Who's over there? We'll leave him there. Should they have left the shadow of Galactus, actually the side of the head of Galactus, out of the trailers?
I think it's a really cool shot for the trailer, and I like the fact that he seemed smaller than I thought he would be. But of course,
for that shot
with us. But they've already announced that at D23. And so it was already the cat's out of the bag in a lot of ways.
I mean, but again, Tracy, I'm going to keep doing this all night long. Like
you can do this all day long.
The percentage, I can do this all day long. Also, America's Ass. We'll get into that later.
I've seen America's Ass in person.
Okay, but listen. Okay, hear me out.
Sights.
Hear me out. I like broccoli. Hear me out. Not very many people tune into D23, and if we're going to go back and compare the marketing level when we started getting Iron Man to the marketing and what's going on in the world right now, it's totally different. Iron Man and setting up the original MCU was a different game. And then they blew it out of the water. This was a science experiment, right? That they had no idea how it was going to go. And that's why they could tease it, because the nerds were carrying it, right? So you gave them that tease and then the audience would explode and then they told it. Now we've got how many... like, hold on, let me finish. Like, how many social media sites do we have right now that are feeding us things, a million things a second, right? And so to not give the stuff that they're giving right now, hype is money, right? You got to get the hype. The hype brings the money for regular folks. We are looking into these things. You read more about movies than anybody I know. You know, like the weirdest stuff about movies. Like, tune into our other podcasts, and Tracy is like the brain of like behind the scenes knowledge, which is amazing. I don't go read anything about, and I've been a film critic for a long time. I no longer watch trailers.
Yeah.
I no longer read anything about it because I want to go in and have the experience. And most people that go to movies do not have time. They're not on social media as much. They're not looking up movies. They're not doing these things. So to hit an algorithm for people to see just snippets of these things, it is a proven fact that you will make a decision on the 7th time that you see something to buy it, to go see it, to like it, to hate it. 7 times. 7 times on a billboard, 7 times on a commercial, and now we've got social media. So when you look into the marketing and branding aspects of things, it might be a little too much for us. But again, for the average Joe that is looking for the probably 1 in 5 movies that they're going to see in the next 6 months, it's a different story. It's a totally different thing.
And
I want to go back to the 7 times, because Roosevelt has like totally figured that out for me. Anyway, go ahead, Tracy. You're going to bring up a much more valid point.
You're already addicted. You're already snorting that up every day. Like, you're done.
I am. Yeah. That's all my feed is. So
but I've talked to people who don't follow the films, who saw Brave New World and said, yeah, I felt like I'd seen it already because of because there's so much commercials. But like I said, typically you'll get the same framework and you'll get like 1 or 2 new shots. For Brave New World, it was like everything outside of the design of the leader was out
like
there.
They didn't want to show that.
Superman. It was Batman versus Superman, where in the trailer they pretty much show you every good thing about the
fight.
Yeah.
I
get it.
I think though, so the Red Hulk, right? They show him in the trailer and you know that Ross is going to turn into the Red Hulk. But I think a lot of people already knew Ross was, I think they felt like that was on a level. This isn't like Darth Vader is Luke's father. Sorry, spoilers for those who didn't know. Yeah. but it's not that level.
Don't act like you didn't just say that. Go back again. What was this?
Yeah, it's a big deal. Vader's actually Luke Skywalker's father. Anakin, it's whole thing.
Robert, are you okay?
No, I'm pretty far from okay.
And Luke wasn't either when he found out. I don't want to. I mean, I feel bad that I've spoiled it for you, but yeah, it's a powerful moment. But
I need a minute. Hold on. I need a minute.
But I think Ross becoming Red Hulk isn't that level of a reveal, because the minute he appeared on screen in Incredible Hulk, I'm like, we're gonna get the Red Hulk at some point. I know, but I think a lot of people did, is what I'm saying, and I think they were taking a gamble that most people already
knew.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't even know there was.
Tracy just proved my point that I've been trying to prove the entire podcast. Thank you, Tracy. You can stop talking.
But it was just, to me, it was just all the good parts were like, to me, it felt, and this is my interpretation, to me, it felt like Disney and Marvel was afraid. We need a hit. We haven't had a really good hit in a while. We don't necessarily have faith that the audience is going to come see Captain America with Sam Wilson. So we're going to push all of the, hey, Giancarlo Esposito from Breaking Bad is in this movie, and Harrison Ford is Red Hulk. And I like the fact that Harrison Ford, for a while, tried to, in these interviews, was trying to be like, I don't know what you're talking about. And you could tell that he was very uncomfortable lying, but I got to applaud him. But
But
I
it's more that
on that, Tracy. I agree
there were
with you.
whole commercials where it was that whole fight scene.
I
And it's
agree.
like,
And
we're
I-
Crazy
making out
because
to be
Black
this-
Panther, they didn't do that at all. Black Panther, like they went full throttle into Black Panther. They said, we made this movie, so we're in. Like it's either going to succeed or not succeed. And they
Right.
went fully into it.
It was an
And
entirely different time, though.
It was.
Yeah.
It was an entirely different time.
And I think the marketing, they're doing it not just to sell tickets to the movie, but also to sell the merchandise, right? I mean, that's been a big
Yeah.
part of movies for a long time. But
Yeah.
if you're putting a Hulk in a movie, then you want to sell the Hulk hands. And especially
Yeah.
everybody's got the green ones. Now they want the red ones because it's the red Hulk.
Right.
And, you know, things like that. And so I think that that was part of the reason why they put it in there. And you're right, Tracy. They did not have faith that the audience was going to come see this movie. And they wanted the audience to come see this movie.
And I get that. I mean, this is like Valerie said, that's $180 million. That's not cheap.
And they're doing the same thing with Fantastic Four. You brought up Galactus, Robert, and I think that's the reason you get the shot of Galactus there, because they want you to know this isn't another Doctor Doom versus the
Wow.
Fantastic Four story. We are bringing in Galactus, which is what everybody wants to see,
And he's not just this nebulous cloud.
Right.
because we've been burned how many times with the Fantastic Four? They want
It's
us
just
to
the
know
Human
this
Torch.
time you can trust us. It's just the Human Torch.
Robert
Yeah,
is on fire tonight.
Flame on.
that was also well timed. But I agree, Tracy. They did give away a lot in the trailer. I guess it didn't bother me because it wasn't anything spoilery for me. I understand what you're saying though, and that other people it was, and I think that's completely valid. I think
Yeah.
they did give away a
Well,
lot in the trailer.
And my other, like I said, having the leader be the main guy behind the scenes, and you haven't brought him up in 18 years, and you had to have a lot of exposition to explain him, versus with Ross, you could say Sokovia Awards, here's him with the mustache, here's Betty, and you're like, okay, I'm back. Whereas
Yeah,
with the
but-
leader, it took a lot of time.
But who
Um,
wants to go watch a movie about a corrupt president? We live that every day.
Tracy, you just made me think about something.
Yes.
One
So-
trying to be better.
So, no. So you bring up the point of all the exposition. You both bring up the point about all the exposition characters we haven't seen in a long time, because we haven't really seen Ross since
First
Age of
time.
Ultron.
Age of Ultron, yeah.
So I mean that's been a minute as well. But let's look at it in a slightly different take. Look at it within the lens of, and this series didn't do well either, but it parallels
Mhm.
Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
That was not
I
good.
wanted it to go
I
well.
wanted to,
I know.
Now I was entertained. It was not great. I was entertained. I mean, it's how Nick Fury got his groove back. We find out that Nick Fury is Nick Fury only because of all of his things with the Skrulls. Here we found out that Ross is Ross the way he is. We see him now because of Stearns behind the scene, and the
Right.
parallels there.
Right.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think that we're getting a slow burn.
Mhm. And I
And
like that. I appreciate that.
I mean, and I don't want, quick hit all the time. I enjoy having things that are drawn out. The fact that we're finally getting information from the Eternals, great. The fact that we finally bring back Ross and Stearns, great. Betty's back, yay. Are we going to see Bruce show up at some point where, Sam's having a cookout, Betty's here. Oh, hey, Bruce, how you doing? Awkward. Do we get that? So, I mean, there's yes, they telegraphed a lot, and no, Marvel has not had the best track record for the past 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, let me rephrase that. It's been hit or miss.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the Marvels, for too many people, was considered a miss. I think it was a great movie. I had a great time with it. But
Mhm.
that's me. Again, maybe not for everybody.
Right.
I still haven't.
I thought the movie was pretty good. I loved the Ms. Marvel series. I thought that was
Yeah.
fantastic.
And
And young
one
actress.
episode of that.
whew,
Iman
she's
Vellani, yeah.
fantastic. Yeah.
She was also writing the Ms. Marvel comic after that series,
Mhm.
or co-writing it, sorry. But, I'm willing to give the Kingdom of the Mouse a little bit of latitude here in going, we think we have a good movie. We're not 100% because we thought we had good movies before,
Mhm.
and it bit us in the ass. So hey, look at this thing that you might have known about, or you might not have known about. We're going to give you a little bit more of that. And I'm okay with it as both a movie fan and as a comics fan, because they did enough in this with characters who don't have a lot to do with each other, generally speaking, and putting them together in a situation where they have to work together. They have to work past their common past and their common issues, which I thought it was great that Sam brought that up. Like, you're the guy who broke us up. Now you want me to get the band back together? All right, sure. But I like the fact that, I look at this movie is not a great leap forward. It is a small step, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
It's in the right direction, yes.
Yeah. And for me, that's what I've been telling people in my reviews, is that if you're going into this and expecting an Avengers movie, like you said, Robert, with all of this fast motion and like big hero moments and all of that, that's not what this movie is about at all. It's very much like the series in that we are learning stories, and we are connecting the past, because the show is about connecting that past and showing how important it is to remember that, and then moving forward through that. And so I really appreciated that. I'm an action movie junkie. I love it. Right. But I really appreciated that they stayed with Sam and Bucky's show and really brought us this story, even though, yes, there's holes, but moving us through thinking about more than just these out-of-world superheroes, because that's not who Sam Wilson is. And that's why I appreciate it so much. And I want him to win at the box office, right? Like, I want to show that you don't need the super serum, and you don't need somebody in a freaking iron suit and somebody from outer space to make your movie good.
Yeah.
Right.
Just a giant head in the ocean. But honestly, what I'll say is
that's another Tuesday.
Well, no. Well, yeah, there's another Tuesday.
That's a good cut from our panel. Very nice.
But this movie, unpopular opinion, is not just the continuation of the Captain America story at large, nor Falcon and the Winter Soldier at large. It is also an Eternals continuation, in the fact that it does something that the Eternals did. It was a very, very slow build, world building. The Eternals was a bridge movie, setting up situations that have to be explained in the future, and also trying to bring in new characters with the Black Knight and Blade as an example. But here, the world has changed and nobody has talked about it. So now we are literally world building around something that came out of another event that we haven't talked about, and people have been questioning, what about the elephant in the room, so to speak? And where do we go from here? So I think that as a stepping stone in that kind of storytelling and world building, it's, again, not great leap forward, but it is a step.
Yeah.
I'm a little I just felt like I was expecting this smoldering crater, and I got something decent, but then I look at those pieces and I go, but you really could have had something really, really special. And I don't know where it went wrong. I don't know if it was
rewrite number 6.
And when you have 5 screenwriters,
it's when they cut Seth Rollins out.
When you have 5 credited screenwriters, that really means you had like 12. Like, because there's a lot of people who will do screenwriting that don't do enough to get the screen credit. So
I think they invited all of the people who wrote Rihanna's work. They brought all 15 of those people to write this script. Sorry. That was a deep cut.
I will say though, I am loving the Harrison Ford press conference that he's been doing lately. Ever since, I gotta say, like when he did the Blade Runner 2049 with what's the other actor's name? Ryan Gosling. Where he started just busting Ryan Gosling every chance that he got.
Harrison Ford doesn't remember him either, so that's okay.
But like, did you guys see the clip at one of the press junkets, and somebody asked him, you have the motion cap suit on to do Red Hulk.
Yeah.
It's got to feel weird. How do you deal with that? And because you're like this really good actor, and he goes, it's easy. the money. And it's just
Yeah.
the way but then he's like, but I'm not going to just do anything for money. I have to think that this is a good part, and I've got to and I really felt like he really brought his A game to this movie. Like that was a way better loss than
Harrison Ford doesn't need to make anything. He chooses to.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And he says that, but just the way he says, it's the money. Like,
yeah, it's really
he's
good.
got
It's
such a dry sense of humor.
Yeah.
I love it.
yeah. So Tracy, let me ask you this. What grade would you give this movie?
I would go like a B- on this movie. It was better than I expected. I was entertained. There were some, like, for the most part, the CGI worked for me. I thought the Red Hulk CGI was really, really good. Some of the fight scenes were pretty good. Like the whole battle over the Indian Ocean, I thought was really quite well done. But then like the fist fights there were some weird shots where I'm like, you could tell that the punch is missing the face. And I was just, eh. And then as much as I loved Anthony Mackie's Sam talking down Red Hulk and calming him down so that they could rest him instead of just punching his lights out, the background of the cherry blossoms was so CGI background that I'm like, you got the Hulk so good and you can't do cherry blossoms. What?
They ran out of budget. Their budget.
It was somebody's cousin that they're like, just let him do the cherry blossoms.
We
It'll be
need this.
fine.
The deadline's coming. Just go.
No one's even going to notice except this one guy who's got a podcast.
I'm next.
I thought it was fun. I enjoyed it. I don't think I need to really see it again, but I want to see Anthony Mackie continue in this role, and I want to see more. I just felt like he wasn't the star of his own movie, and that kind of detracted from me. But yeah.
Okay.
All right. Val, what do you think?
It's a solid B for me. I will see it again. Again, it's not going to punch you in the face. No pun intended. It is that slow burn that I appreciate, right? And a solid B is really good, especially for Marvel movies lately. I will see it again, and honestly, my grade might change. I'm going back and I'm starting Falcon Winter Soldier again, and a lot of movies have been doing this to me lately, where I go in and I watch it because we're kind of so saturated with movies right now that that I just have to give it a minute. And I think it's one that I'm going to go watch this and then watch it again and notice some things that I didn't notice the first time, knowing that this wasn't made to win awards. This was made to bring you to something and to get this character off of the small screen into the big screen for his moment. And they didn't have to do that, you guys. Like, they could have introduced all this story without giving Sam Wilson his own movie. And I do feel like it was a duo movie. Now, it was better than Ant-Man, because that was definitely not an Ant-Man movie, right? If it wasn't called Ant-Man and it would have just been called whatever the crap other part of the title is, then I would have believed it even more. But this, I do feel like it was a dual movie with Wilson just a little bit ahead. So I can see that, Tracy, but it's a solid B. I will watch it again. It will probably even move up to a B+ for me, because it hit that part of my heart that I needed, right? From this character that I love. And I think that's in every different movie. Like, there's people that really love Thor, and so they might like Dark, whatever that crappy movie is as well. But like, not every movie is for everyone. This one was for me. I really enjoyed it. I will watch it again.
Robert?
I'm going to go solid B like Val. This movie was for me. And I will be the first to harp on the fact that representation, period, full stop. All the people who were like, not my Cap, get over it. Steve Rogers is no longer Captain America. I mean, it could have been Bucky. Would you have been happy if it had been Bucky? We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
And it doesn't change anything that Steve did. They're not rewriting history.
Again, and if you really would come down to it, Steve chose his successor, and he chose his the guy who helped him adapt to the new world, not the guy he grew up with, for many reasons. again, not a perfect movie. But it was fun. I enjoyed shoveling popcorn into my mouth while I was watching it. I mean, I
Did you
dressed
get
up
the
for the
popcorn
movie.
bucket?
I did. I got a giant shield. I don't need a popcorn bucket. That's another shield.
Popcorn out of the shield.
I mean, Mackie did it, and he looked cool doing it. I would not look neurally as cool. So,
Well, who would? I mean,
there you go.
In fairness,
Yeah. It had its warts, not just on Stern's face. But it was a fun movie. Like I said, I was entertained. I didn't go in there with pie in the sky aspirations for this movie. I wanted a good movie. I got a good movie, and I got some social commentary, and I got to see Carl Lumbly, being the guy who's been through it and has to go through it again and come out the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that we see more of him as a mentor to Sam and to Joaquin going forward.
I like Joaquin quite a bit.
Yeah, Joaquin's great.
I mean, Danny Ramirez did a great job as the new Falcon. He had the wit and the charm.
Was he
that balanced
in DC?
No.
Okay.
I think that he played well against Sam, which we saw to a smaller degree in Winter Falcon in the Winter Soldier. But watching this movie was just a fun time at the movies. I'm going to see it again. I'm not going to nitpick things. I'm going to be entertained again.
Yeah.
And, end of the day, I was happy with what I got.
Yeah. I gave it a B- in my review. And I think it's just the problems with the story that are there. I was thinking the other day, one of the big, maybe it's not, and I just missed part of it in the movie, but at one point when Sam's talking to Stearns and he says, yeah, we know about the gamma radiation that you've been, where did he learn that? Because the guy that was calling him and was going to tell him, Stearns killed right before that. Anyway, but that's nitpicking, and I agree with Robert. It was a fun movie, and I can overlook a lot. Biggest thing positive for me was Anthony Mackie as Captain America. He really nails the role. He's playing a very different Cap than Chris Evans as Steve Rogers. But what he's done is really incredible. He took what was basically a sidekick in the MCU, and he's turned him into the future leader of the Avengers. And for me, it's believable that Sam's now going to lead the Avengers. I can see him in that role. I could see him doing that. And that is pretty impressive. But just some of the stuff that he says as Sam Wilson in this movie is so powerful. And the fact that he is just a normal guy in the sense he doesn't have any superpowers or anything like that. He's
very humble.
And
much like Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
He got knifed in the chest. He got stabbed in the thigh. He had a Hulk, even with the vibranium Wakanda armor, that's still a Hulk pounding on you.
The minute those wings came out and then came over to the front, I was like, yes! Like, oh my gosh. Like his whole reveal of the thing, like I could just watch that over and over, and I'm just waiting for the vibranium to like when is it gonna come? When is it gonna
Yeah, and when
that opening fight scene where he lands and he just looks at the guys and goes, wait for it. And then the shockwave hit, I was like, all right. Yes.
And see, if he can do that, if he can fight off the Hulk, and if he can do all the amazing things, you guys, we can face Tuesday after a 3-day weekend, right? We can make it through.
You had a 3-day weekend?
Well,
that's nice.
Sorry.
I'm happy for you.
Bitter point. Apologize. Awkward. Well, there you go. Go see Captain. What's that, Tracy? Sorry.
Good attempt there, Jake.
Yeah.
Credit for the effort.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Go and see Captain America: Brave New World. See it in the theaters. This is definitely one that, watch it when it comes out on Disney Plus. Buy it when it comes out streaming. Absolutely. But go see it in the theaters because you really want to experience it on the big screen. I mean, Red Hulk just doesn't look as good on a little tiny screen. I'm just saying. But it's a good movie. It's enjoyable. I like where it's going. If you have any comments or concerns or whatever, you can reach out to us on social media. We appreciate you watching our show or listening to it. And until next time, wait, Robert, where can we find you online?
Oh, you can find me on Instagram or Threads at Action Figure Theater.
Awesome.
And for those that aren't aware of Action Figures Theater, please give them a little sample of what they can expect. Because if you're not following that account, you need to.
It is my daily playing with my toys. Basically, action figure picture of the day. I've actually got to finish the one for today because it's been a long day. But yeah.
Often with lots of really interesting educational historical information to go along.
Oh, sure, that too.
This is a great time if you haven't started
it's not
following.
This is a fun picture of my toys. This is a well thought out, creative tie-in to whatever you're talking about.
Yeah, and typically it ties in with whatever holiday it is, even like the National Donut Day and whatever. But it's Black History Month this month, which is a great time to pick up Robert's account and start following it, because every day is something new and cool that you put on there.
Well, thank you.
So, all right. Well, thank you everybody for listening, for watching. We appreciate it. Robert, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, we won't see you at the movies.
I'm on your right.
Left. Wait, I don't know.
I'll tell
to the left. The left.
Okay. We're out.